Welcome to the Explainer. You hear it all the time, right? Is the economy booming, or is a bust just around the corner? It feels like a big guessing game. Well, what if it didn't have to be? Today, we're going to learn how to read the economy's hidden signals. We're going to turn those confusing headlines into clear insights that you can actually use for your financial future. Okay, so let's jump right in. The big question is this: how do you go from just, hearing the news about the economy to really understanding what it means for your job, your savings, your investments? It's all about connecting those big, scary headlines to your actual life.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the two essential lenses analysts use to see the economy. Then, we'll check out the economic dashboard, the key numbers they're always watching. After that, we'll talk about riding the economic waves, the ups and downs. And finally, the most important part, how to take all those signals and turn them into a real, practical strategy. All right, let's get into our first section, the two essential lenses. See, to really get a complete picture of what's happening, you can't just look at the economy from one angle. Analysts use two totally different perspectives, one that's way up close and another that's from super far away. So you've got microeconomics. Think of this as your magnifying glass. It zooms right in on the nitty-gritty, the decisions that you, me, and individual companies make every single day. And then you have macroeconomics. That's the telescope. It pulls way, way back so you can see the entire economic landscape. We're talking the whole forest, not just a few trees. With microeconomics, we're getting personal. We're asking really specific questions. Like, hey, why did the price of my coffee just go up? Or why did that company down the street have to lay people off? It's all about understanding those individual pieces that make up the giant economic puzzle. Okay, now let's grab that telescope and zoom out to the big picture, macroeconomics. This is where you find those huge headline numbers you're always hearing about. Is the entire economy growing? What's the unemployment rate doing? This is the high-level stuff that governments and central banks are looking at when they make those massive decisions that, end up affecting every single one of us. All right, so let's think about the economy like a car for a second. It's a great analogy. Macroeconomics is basically the dashboard. It's got all these key indicators that tell you exactly what's going on. How fast are we going? Is the engine starting to overheat? And, maybe most importantly, is it time to hit the brakes? First up on that dashboard is the big one, Gross Domestic Product, or GDP. This is basically the economy's speedometer. In simple terms, it's the total dollar value of everything our country makes and sells over a certain time. It's the number one way we know if the economy is growing or, shrinking. So when you see a positive number, like plus 2.5%, that's a good sign. It means the economic engine is humming. For you, that usually translates into more job opportunities, maybe a better chance at a raise. Businesses feel good, so they start expanding. A negative number? Yeah, that's a signal that things are slowing down. Okay, next gauge on our dashboard, inflation. Think of this as the engine's temperature gauge. A little bit of heat is totally normal, even healthy. But if that gauge starts creeping into the red, if it runs too hot for too long, that's a problem. It's a silent thief, just eating away at the value of your savings. That dollar you have today, it's just not going to buy as much tomorrow. And here's something really important to get. Inflation isn't just one thing. It can happen for a couple of different reasons. Sometimes it's because everyone's out there wanting to buy stuff and there's just not enough to go around. That's demand pull. Other times, it's because it's getting more expensive for businesses to make things. That's cost push. And you absolutely have to know which one it is to figure out the right way to cool things down. And the last major dial on our dashboard is interest rates. This is the number one tool central banks have to control the economy's speed. Think of it this way. Raising rates is like tapping the brakes. It's meant to cool down an economy that's getting too hot. And lowering them, that's like stepping on the gas pedal to get things moving again. So how does that actually work? Well, it's like a chain reaction. The central bank raises interest rates. All of a sudden, putting your money in a savings account looks way more attractive, right? And at the same time, taking out a loan for a car or a house gets more expensive. So what do people do? We spend less. Businesses invest less. That cools down demand across the board, and that's what helps get that inflation fever to break.
Okay, so here's the thing about the economy. It never, ever moves in a perfectly straight line. It's much more like waves in the ocean. There are ups and there are downs. And just like a sailor, if you learn how to read those waves, you can navigate things a whole lot better. And there are really three main types of waves to watch for. You've got the huge, long-term ones called secular trends. These are the game changers that play out over decades, like the shift to technology. Then you have the cyclical trends.
These are the boom and bust cycles we're all a bit more familiar with, the ones that last a few years. And finally, you have the short, predictable, seasonal trends. Think about how retail stores always have a huge sales rush around the holidays. That's a seasonal trend.
Let's zoom in on that cyclical trend for a second, because it's a big one. It pretty much always follows the same four-act play. First, you have the expansion. That's the good times, when everything's growing. Then comes the slowdown, where things start to cool off a bit. If it cools off too much, you enter a recession. But, and this is the key, that's always followed by a recovery, and the whole cycle just gets ready to start all over again.
Okay, so we've got our lenses to see the big and small picture, and we've got our dashboard to read the vital signs. But what's the point of all this? How do we actually turn these signals into a strategy, something we can use for our own money or our businesses?
Right. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to know what GDP is, but it's another thing entirely to use that knowledge to make a smarter decision. And the good news is, there's a really well-established way to do exactly that.
It's a strategy called the top-down approach, and it's pretty straightforward. You start at the very top. You look at the whole economy. What's the big picture? Then you move down a level. Based on that big picture, which parts of the economy, which sectors, look like they're set to do really well? And only then, at the very end, do you drill down to find the best individual companies inside those winning sectors.
And this is where it all clicks into place. You just ask a simple question for each indicator, and it starts pointing you towards a strategy. For example, is GDP growing fast? Okay, maybe you should look at sectors built for growth. Are interest rates falling? Well, that could be great for businesses like real estate or car companies that rely on people taking out loans. You can even look at something like the current account, which is basically just the country's trade balance, and it'll give you clues about whether exporting companies or importing companies have the upper hand.
You know, here's another really powerful signal to watch. Where is foreign money going? Is it what they call foreign direct investment, or FDI? That's the good stuff, the long-term, stable money that's actually building new factories and businesses. Or is it foreign portfolio investment, FPI? They call that hot money for a reason. It can rush into a country one day and rush right back out the next. The kind of money a country is attracting tells you a ton about long-term investor confidence.
So, when you boil it all down, it really comes to this. You just can't evaluate a single company in a vacuum. You have to understand the economic ocean that it's swimming in. That big picture macroeconomic context, it is absolutely 100% essential.
So there you have it. That's the basic toolkit. We've shown you the lenses, the dashboard, and the strategy. So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. With these massive, long-term trends like AI and huge demographic shifts literally reshaping our world, which dials on that economic dashboard do you think you should be watching most closely over the next decade? The signals are out there. You just have to know how to read them.